Welcome back to the Ride and Laugh podcast. If you love mountain biking, you are in the right place. Picture your last group ride. You're back at the parking lot. The vibe is high. The stoke is high. Everyone's talking about bikes, tech, nutrition, gear. You love bikes. We love bikes. Let's drop in. Sage, how are you today?
Danny, I am doing so much better, man. The weather has finally turned. We're finally getting some warmer weather. Of course, that means a lot of melting, so the trails aren't still rideable, but at least it's starting to get warm. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. That's fantastic to hear that the light is at the end of the tunnel.
Yes.
I have a question because this is something that I've noted this for a long time in my mountain bike career, and it's just something that happened to me the other day. I had fallen weeks ago. I had fallen, and I had one of those falls where I hit my knee hard enough. I didn't scratch it, but I hit it hard enough where it broke the skin. And the thing was just about healed. And then I'm riding on Sunday with Ryan and Joe at South Mountain. Awesome ride. And these guys are shredding. They're going so fast. I'm doing my best to keep up. And I have a little slip up.
Yeah.
And I end up putting my knee down. Didn't get hurt. It was no big deal. I got up and kept riding. Wouldn't you know, I take the knee pad off.
Oh, no.
It's the same exact spot. Do you have that? I mean, why do I fall? Why am I falling on the same? Not only do I fall on the same side, on the same exact spot.
What? So what's the point of the knee pad if you're still getting cuts underneath it?
It's significantly less. I go through knee pads. Like I don't tear the pad part, but all the other part.
Yeah.
That's not what this conversation was. This conversation is about mountain bikers and Sage. Do we always fall on the same side? Why does it feel like? Do you have a favorite side to fall? I mean, I feel like my 90% of my falls are on my left side on this left knee. I don't know. Am I crazy?
Gosh, yeah. I don't know if you're crazy, but I feel like I fall to the right side. Like my right hand, my right elbow, my right knee always seems to get more scratched up. Yeah, that's weird. That is very weird. But you also... I think it has to do with the dominant foot issue again, because your dominant foot is your right foot and my dominant foot is my left.
Oh, we might be onto something here. Oh, okay. So now we definitely need comments. Ride and Laugh 1 at Gmail and YouTube comments. Are you falling on the same side? And if you are, what side is it and how does that correlate? So I'm a right foot forward guy. I'm falling on my left side.
Yeah.
And you're the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And
we need
I did a little
Ride and Laugh study.
Yeah, I did a little research, and we had a conversation a little while ago about which side we clip in on first. And I have been taking notes, not actual notes, but taking notes about which side I clip into the most. I clip in with my right foot first, and I put my dominant foot as the second clip in. You know, so like I make sure that my right foot's clipped in already, and then when I'm ready to go, I slap my dominant foot into the clip. And I think it's because I guess I'm more comfortable that way. Like,
you should have told me to take mental notes also, because I am definitely clipping in with one foot first. And it's like crazy that I can't even think of which one it is.
I know.
I mean, if I go stand next to my bike, I'll know right away, but I feel like I'm clipping in my right foot first and then my left foot as I go, which would be the opposite. That would be putting my dominant foot. Yeah. It makes sense to do your dominant foot on the move, because that one you're going to feel like maybe you have a little bit more control over.
Right.
I do wonder, like, for our riders, our listeners that ride with flat pedals, how often do you put a foot down and then feel like this isn't in the spot that I want it to be? Like, how often are you moving your foot around on flat pedals? Because you would think we would just clip in automatically, which we do.
We do, yeah.
90% of the time, but there's still 10% of the time where you just like not quite clipped in, and it won't happen.
Yes.
So I wonder how much, like, does a flat pedal person also feel maybe it just doesn't matter. Like, if you're not in the exact right spot, you just have more confidence to just go with it. Whereas when you're not clipped in, it creates panic.
Yeah, I don't think that I've never heard anybody make any kind of, I don't know if complaint's the right word, but I guess complaint is the right word. Like, I've never heard about anybody complaining about their foot not being in the right position on a flat pedal, but I hear people complain about getting clipped. Yeah, yeah, you and I, yeah. But you and I are always like, I can't get clipped in, or I can't get, it's like that's a going theme. Although you and I are also doing like really hard tech, so it's crucial that we get clipped in right away. And when you can't get it, it sucks.
Maybe with the flat pedal, the bigger problem is not starting with your foot in the right spot, but when your foot gets knocked off. How often does that happen? Because I do flat pedals at desert trails, and every once in a while I'll have a run where the bike moves underneath of me, and I don't slip a pedal, but my foot moves,
yeah,
and I'm no longer in like the power position, and I'm done. I hit the brakes, like the run's over.
Yeah.
I mean, for mountain biking, obviously that's going to be different, but how often does your foot get knocked off the pedal, and then you just have to like ride with it there because, it's too tacky to really lift your foot up and get it back exactly where you want it.
Yeah. I think, I've experienced that too on the DJ at Phoenixville Bike Park. But I don't also ride them enough to be able to like get a position that like, I'm assuming that once you ride flats long enough, it's like not even a thought. And I bet even if it was like a little bit off, like you probably know how to make that adjustment pretty quickly. I'm just not skilled enough or versed enough in flats to be able to comment on that.
Yeah, listeners, let us know. I know we have listeners on flat pedals, and we've you and I talked about doing a flat pedal versus clipped in pedal kind of style debate, to go back and forth on what some of those benefits are. And let us know if you're interested in learning about that, because we'll dig into it. And there's some science in there that's pretty interesting. But just from a comfort standpoint, our flat pedal riders, how often are you getting knocked off? And is that a thing, getting your foot back into that proper position? I think to me, that's one of the main things I really love about being clipped in, is that once you're in, that the feet are no longer a worry.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just not a concern. Yeah.
Yeah. It's again, being clipped in really allows you to drive the bike into these technical features a lot easier. Your foot slipping off is not a concern. You can pull up as much as you pull down. You can shift this bike around. I think it makes a huge difference on really technical climbing. And I don't ride with enough people that are on flats that enjoy doing that kind of climbing to be able to even speak to that, so let us know. Like, I don't know. Do you ride on South Mountain? Like, how many people are you seeing that are on flats versus clips?
The local South Mountain riders that are out there riding every day and climbing National Trail and doing those sorts of things, they're clipped in.
Wow.
I have seen people on flats do those climbs, do some climbing there. That's amazing. But I think that the general consensus is tech climbing and, well, let's say tech climbing clipped in. How much of like the super high, fast, chunky downhill technical riding also helps? They also want to be clipped in for that, like, let us know. I mean, we have a lot of Arizona listeners at this point, Riding Left One at Gmail and YouTube comments, and flat pedals versus clipped in, and benefits of trying flat pedals. I mean, you've talked about one of the benefits of the dirt jumper is being on flat pedals.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the fact that it's forcing me, because the flat pedals do force you to get into better body position. Like I get worried like, oh, am I not jumping correctly? And so when I got into the dirt jumper and I was like, oh, I'm still able to get up in the air comfortably, I knew that I was not relying on my clips. Now that's not to say that the clips don't help. I'm just saying that the technique is there. And so now if you're able to apply other things like pumping into turns or working the bike in the air, you're doing those all on flats. That's going to definitely translate to better riding when you go to get clipped in. And I am noticing that. Like I am noticing that I'm a lot more aggressive on my new bike, the Stumpy. Like I'm like, okay, I can feel it. Like I can feel myself working the bike. And I think that's because of all the work that you and I had been doing this summer, at the Phoenixville Bike Park.
You attribute your more aggressive confidence on your mountain bike to jumping your dirt jumper.
That and this incessant need to be able to do a
Scandinavian Flick, which is, explain that for the Ride and Laugh Dictionary.
Yes, the Scandi was, I think what Logan said it was you don't brake, but you're sliding the back tire out aggressively. When you see somebody do it, it's mind blowing.
So
like it's so cool. But like to be able to do that, you really have to get your hips moving. You know, you got to unweight and kind of like, if you're not going to touch the brakes. Now, that's the key. It's insane, Dan. It's so insane, but it does require a lot of body English.
such a level of bike control. Yeah, I mean, anything's possible. I freaking love it, man. I mean, like anything is possible. The things that I see people doing on bikes out here, the riders in Arizona are incredible. And you know, I love riding National Trail, and I was out with Joe and Ryan, and we did a big old ride, and Joe was absolutely slaying it. But following them down National Trail, like I mean, and these are guys that live on South Mountain, you know, like they know the lines, but also the speed and the confidence and gapping here and gapping that, just like barely touching the trail in certain parts. It's really cool to see. It's really cool to see what is possible. But that's what's so great about mountain biking and so great about life, is that anything is possible. Sometimes we just need to open our eyes and see what's out there and know, wait, unlimited means unlimited. So what do we want from our mountain bike career, and what do we want from our lives? And dream big, and let's see what happens.
Well, listen, I know you want to get into the comments, but I mentioned that the Scandinavian Flick is something that I've been kind of working on.
Oh, yeah. Right.
What is a move that you are currently working on or want to work on? And think about it a little bit, unless you have an answer right now, and we'll return to it after the comments.
When you brought up the Scandinavian Flick, it reminded me of a train of thought that I had that I wanted to go back to when we were talking about the flat pedals.
Yeah.
And I noticed something for the first time. Last time I was at Desert Trails, which was a couple of weeks ago, I noticed that even though I'm on flat pedals, when I boost the jump, I can still pull up on the bike. Even though I'm on flat pedals.
Oh, yeah.
The bike will come up into my body more. And then that kind of gives me more control to then arc it and start looking at the landing.
Yeah.
But I had never noticed that. Like, I can still pull up, but the bike's not clipped in. It doesn't like seem like it should work.
Yeah.
But I guess your upward momentum, you're just continuing to use that.
Yes, there's two things there's three things really, because it's really, one of it's just letting the bike come up into your body, like your body's hitting that lip, and you're just letting it come up into your body. But the other things that you are doing that you probably don't notice that you're doing is you're actually like, I tilt my toe down. Like, I'm looking at all the pictures. My dominant toe is definitely tilted down, so I can pull up on the pedal. That's one. And two, I use my wrists. And I roll my wrists. And I was actually watching videos of me at the pump track. And there's a few things that I want to adjust and correct, because I think I'm doing too much wrist roll. But that's the other thing that you can do. As you roll your wrist forward, that brings the back end up. We're not talking feet. We're talking like inches, but it makes a huge difference by rolling your wrists forward. It helps you to pull that bike up into you. So I noticed that I was doing it too much. So I had this like row motion going, and I hate it. It looks ridiculous.
Were you doing it on purpose, or was it something that was just happening?
Yes. But I think I was really nervous about, am I going to be able to pull this bike up? And so I started imploring all the techniques, but I was exaggerating everything. So now I'm looking at myself on the pump track. I have this implementing. I have this like exaggerated row motion where you can actually see the bike, and I'm trying to like push it, like row it forward. It looks ridiculous. And I want to kind of dial that back. And actually I would love to talk to Ryan and see if he can't give me some more pointers too. Cause I also noticed that, you know, he's jacking this thing up to his chest, you know, just like standing straight up. I'd love to learn to do that as well, instead of this weird wrist roll thing I'm doing.
The other thing that I've noticed that flat pedal jumpers do, and I've seen this on YouTube videos, is with the forward foot and the rear foot, you make a V. So the forward foot is toe down, and the back foot is heel down forward, and the back foot is toe down. And so now when you're on flat pedals and you have a little bit of tension, and you actually have some ability to move and pull the bike based on the clips and that sort of thing. I have a comment that ties in, I think, really well with what we were just talking about. And I also have my mountain bike move that I want to learn next. Which would you like first?
The comment first, and then I can't wait to hear this move. Yes.
All right. All right. It's nothing earth shattering. It's just like came to me like, yeah, oh, yeah, of course I'd like to be able to do this one. So just to lower your expectations a little bit. It's a unicycle. It's doing the white line on a unicycle. I saw it on Instagram.
Oh my.
I'm starting another podcast. I apologize. And it's just called Laugh. There's no riding. It's going to be me doing stand-up. What's it have to do with a unicycle? And I'll be on a unicycle juggling. It's like a whole circus thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So we were talking about you making a conscious decision to do something in the air differently with whether that be with your wrist or your toes and your foot placement. And we're reviewing episode number 54, Are We Born With It? The love of mountain biking starts with these innate talents.
Yeah.
And a lot of that conversation was, why are new riders not interested in mountain biking? What turns them off? And is it the balance aspect of it, or is there something else? And how hard is it? You know what I mean? Because there's riding a bike and then there's mountain biking. And I think there's a big difference between the two. So people know how to ride a bike, but then mountain biking has so much more skill involved in it. And as you were telling me, like what you're doing when you're in the air, what you're working on, that's an incredible amount of processing power. That's an incredible amount of coordination and athleticism to start doing things differently when you're in the air, and also gaining that confidence to start doing things in the air.
Yeah.
And Denny Janetti, MTB. Dennis has a mountain bike channel, YouTube channel called Denny Janetti MTB, and he has his podcast going. And one of his comments really kind of hit home with what I was just talking about, where he says, I think a lot of riding a bike is honestly natural ability. It's not so much coordination in the way that you think like a sport of like hockey or baseball, but processing power. Mountain biking has such an emphasis on being able to see something and react to what you're seeing, sometimes within a split second. And then he goes on to say that coordination comes later when you're learning things like jumping and tricks and there's another level of coordination that's needed as you advance in mountain biking. But his feeling is that the core principle of mountain biking is read and react.
I absolutely love that. And let me take this one step further. And I didn't even know I was going to go here tonight, but an image popped into my head. And I think one of the things that makes mountain biking so difficult is you might be able to ride a bike on the road or like in the parking lot, but when you get onto the trail, suddenly your path, I guess, or the space that you have to put your bike goes from road size or infinite parking lot down to a foot to 2 feet. And so it's kind of like coloring in a coloring book. You have to learn to color within the lines. And like mountain biking, suddenly there's all this pressure to stay within the lines, like you're coloring within the lines. And then the next thought that popped into my head was, okay, so you have the mountain bikers that are really good at staying on the path. They naturally adapt themselves. Like, okay, I'm a good cyclist and now I can go onto the path and I'm really good at riding on the path. The exceptional riders are able to go outside of the path and create new lines. And it's a whole nother level of like intuitiveness or what was the word that Denny used?
Coordination, natural ability, power.
Yes. And some people, like I watched Jeff Lenoski, and actually I was watching Mike and Stephanie when you had them on a couple episodes, we featured them. They're able to see lines and kind of like color outside of the path, and to be able to take your riding to that level, it's unbelievable. And I think a lot of that has to do with natural ability.
I like this analogy of the road versus the path with features, because it ties in with what Dennis is saying, is that it's processing power. And so when you're on the road and you're going fast and your eyes are up, you don't feel like you're going that fast. When you're driving 80 miles per hour in a car, it doesn't feel that fast, right?
Yeah.
But then narrow that down and put trees or cliffs or just, and you're on dirt and it's only 2 feet wide. and you got to keep your eyes up. Even with your eyes up, it still feels like you're going so fast. But then any fear response from a newbie is going to bring their eyes down. And now it really feels like you're going fast, and so now that processing power really just kind of gets overloaded. So I wonder how much of that natural ability, how much mountain bikers have that natural ability to process quicker, or is it just a matter of keeping your eyes up and learning it?
I just think that some people can adapt to that much easier. Like I know plenty of people that can ride in a parking lot and they do great, or they ride on a big wide dirt path, no problem. And then as soon as the trail gets narrow, or as soon as there's obstacles, it's like everything goes out the door. Like everything goes out the door. So now I'm wondering, like, okay, there's another level here.
Yeah, it kind of goes in with everything we've been talking about with riding blind recently and all that sort of thing, is that processing speed and that confidence. I think a lot of it can be learned. I really do. I think if you have the joy of mountain biking,
I agree.
A lot of it can be learned. Yeah. And we got a lot of comments like that. On the Instagram thread, there was a conversation between Jeff Jackson, MTB, great listener, YouTube channel and Instagram, and Nathan Fields, who runs Ride Reactive, and his Instagram is Yomp MTB, and I haven't ridden with him yet. I've seen him on the trails. We haven't ridden together yet. He's my B fan, my brother from another mother. But in response to, are we born with it? This natural ability for mountain biking, Jeff was saying, I definitely don't feel like I was born with it. My mountain bike skills are hard earned. And Nathan responded, yeah, great podcast topic. Natural ability is great, but I'm a firm believer that hard work beats talent. I fought for what I've earned so far, and that meant time, repetition, effort, and occasionally injury.
Yeah, man.
I kind of feel that way. I feel like I've put the work in too. Like I agree with Jeff and with Nathan. I was saying that on that podcast. Like I know that athletically, I'm a fairly gifted athlete. I'm a coordinated guy, and despite my lankiness, it takes me a little bit longer. I'm not one of these. I've never been like the fastest kid on the block or the first pick, for the basketball team. I've always been good, but with mountain biking, like everything that I'm good at, I feel like I've earned it. Now, how long it takes you to get good at something that you're focusing on, that really might depend on some of the natural ability, and also, but other things too, like how much of the fear response do you have? You had more fear response with jumping, and that took you longer. I had less fear response with jumping, but I have more fear response in general. I find that's still an issue for me, when I start getting into certain features. It's just the thinking mind and that sort of thing. But through repetition, there's a feature on South Mountain, on National Trail, the Gateway. Not the Gateway, the Bermuda Triangle, and we showed up. There's like a zillion ways to get up this thing. And coming down it, you can hop up onto this big rock that you can kind of go over all this jank, or you can hop up onto this big rock and then drop off of the rock. And the hop up is a little bit sketchy. And I saw it for a long, long time, and I never did it. And then I saw Jeff Windsor do it, no problem. And then eventually I did it once. And as I was approaching it the next time, I was nervous about it. And now it's to the point where when I was riding with Ryan and Joe and we came up to that feature, I was like, I'm just going for it. I'm just going to do it. And I just got up onto it, no problem. And I rode it. And now it's no big deal now. It was a big deal, and now it's not. But I put the work in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I put the work in.
Let me ask you a question. When you find a tip from somebody, or when you notice something about someone's riding, how quickly can you implement that into your own ride? I'll give you, for instance.
Yeah.
Is someone gave us a tip of turning the hips when we make a turn. Make sure you rotate your hips. How long did it take you to implement? I don't mean get good. I mean, just how long did it take you to implement that tip, or any tip? I was just giving you an example.
That tip right away. Implement it right away, felt it right away, and then almost immediately forgot about it. It's not like, okay, I've now got this great tip that really helps, and I'm going to use it now. I'm going to use this every ride. I have to consciously think about it. I always I'll get halfway through a ride and be like, oh, my hips. I forgot to turn my hips. All I say to myself now is breaking the glass, break the glass, break the glass, break the glass. I'm so focused on staying centered And maybe in that good body position, maybe the hips happens, like when I'm centered, the front wheel is weighted a little bit more, but it's not automatic. It takes a long time. And that's a great tip. And that's something that I'm like, oh yeah, I should use that. I should focus on that next time I'm out for a ride. How would you answer the question?
I can implement very quickly, but I also pick up things really quickly. The only caveat, or I don't know if that's the right word. The only thing that I ever struggled with was the jumping. And that was because of the mental block. I felt a lot like you, and this isn't a diss in any way. It's just you and I are different riders. You are a method rider. Like you have to work at things and you talk yourself through it. I never had to do any of that. Like I'll see somebody do it and I'm like, oh, I want to do that, or I want to try that. And then I just start doing it. And the jumping was the difference. The jumping, I had to put in the hours, and I felt
you had to change your mindset.
Exactly. I changed it. Danny, it was a complete like reformatting of my brain. Like I had to like basically delete everything and start from scratch. And I had this mental block to contend with, and it was a really interesting experience. It really was.
I love the way you say that it was interesting. Could we match up your ability to to dismantle your belief system about not being a good jumper? And could we coordinate that time-wise with your changing of your belief system about how you live your life, and that you're worthy of all good things and that you're limitless?
Yeah, I mean, actually, Danny, how I lived my life was more like how I mountain bike. I implemented it immediately. I didn't have to work at it. Once you told me, and I believed it, that was the key. Once you told me, you're like, dude, you don't have to, you're not that person. You can be anything you want. Once I believed that, the next day I woke up and implemented that just right away. I was just like, okay, I don't want to be that person anymore. I'm this person.
Amazing.
But that's what I do when I mountain bike too. Like I see somebody do something and I'm like, oh, I want to do that. And then I just immediately implement. I'm not saying I'm good at it. I'm saying that I implement it right away. It's kind of like the Endo Turn. I'll still work that in, and in varying degrees and how ridiculous it looks. But yeah, I don't know. So now that we're talking about these moves, what is the move that you would like to work on that you're going to start implementing on your rides?
Well, I'm already working on it. I'm already implementing it. And you just talked about it. It's the Endo Turn. I would like to get better at being able to plant my front wheel and move that back wheel to where I want it.
Yeah.
And that would be so incredibly useful on the tech here in Arizona and on South Mountain. There's a switchback turn at the end of Central Natty that I saw Sean hop around on and not get, but he got close. And then Ryan was hopping around on it and he didn't get it, but he told me that he has gotten it. It would be awesome to be able to pivot. The other thing you could do is the Jeff Lanoski move, which is put the front wheel cut the switchback narrow, put the front wheel down and swing that back wheel out all the way. I mean, that is some next level riding, but if anything's possible and I'm unlimited, that would be pretty awesome. And the other day I was at the pump track with my dirt jumper, and you do a couple laps and then you're tired. And in between, I just started doing some of these drills that Super Rider has talked about. Aaron at Super Rider, he talks about doing some of these drills where you're just kind of like moving the front wheel around like the face of a clock. That's the idea, is to be able to go all the way around. Oh. So you're just kind of hopping from like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock.
So you're squeezing back brake and then just kind of moving the front around?
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting. Yes. Oh, I want to do that. Yeah.
I've also been taking note of, since we talked about the calluses on our hands last week, I've been taking note of where I am gripping the handlebars more. We talked, is that from technical climbing and climbing, or is that from over gripping on the downhill?
Yes.
And I do so much more climbing out here. It feels like, the climbs take a long time and the downhills are over pretty quickly. So I feel like it's from the climbing. Either way, there's probably some over gripping going on. So I'm curious to see because that podcast is coming out this week. So I'm really curious to see what
Yeah.
the comments are from our mountain bike experts, if calluses are an indicator that we're over gripping, you know.
Yeah. I'm also curious to see if we get some comments on the RevGrips, because I had to watch a lot of video.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. A lot of people are saying that it does help if you have overgripping problems. Like, it really does kind of work like a little bit like suspension. So it'd be handy on the hardtail as well. So you kind of have like this double benefit of like not death gripping, and it also gives you a little suspension. So I'll be curious to see what people have to say about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm super curious about that. One of the things that happened last week when we were talking about who likes mountain biking and why, like, maybe the average person does not necessarily embrace it. And then the podcast ended and you and I continued to talk, as often happens.
As usual. Yeah.
It occurred to me, and I said this, we often see hikers. How many times have you ridden by a hiker and you're riding like some sort of gnarly section, and the hiker says, well, you guys are nuts. I can't believe you guys are out here riding on this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that like kind of answers that question of what normal non-mountain biking people think of getting a bike and riding it on those trails. Obviously, if you're new to mountain biking or you're not mountain biking and they see you on an advanced level trail or just a hard looking trail, it seems right like us seeing a pro level, right? Well, like you seeing Jeff Lenoski lines, you know, a hiker seeing our normal lines, you know, it seems extraordinary. But I do think that there's something in there with regular people just kind of thinking that we're nuts.
Well, that's going to depend on where they're seeing you, right? I mean, you know, if you're on a flow trail, hikers aren't like, wow, look at you, you know, just.
No, I don't get that comment. We don't get that comment on flow trails, nor are we really on flow trails.
What I'm getting at is that the kind of tech climbing that you're doing on South Mountain is impressive. I could see why that would ensue a comment or some kind of reaction from people that don't bike. But I don't think that's mountain biking for most people. You know, you're in a very small group of people that can climb that kind of stuff, you know, and then you have the level up from you, which is like the Rob Drew, you know, and the Lenoskis who are able to like.
No. Yes. Of course. Yeah, I'm saying no and yes at the same time. So funny.
Oh, interesting.
I'm saying we have all had the experience. Listeners, you, me, we've all had the experience. I've had this experience on South Mountain, but I've had this experience at French Creek of riding by people on rocks, and they say, you're nuts. I can't believe you guys are doing this. That's really cool. Like, even if it's not dangerous, it just seems hard to someone who's not mountain biking. And so we're talking about like what prohibits people from enjoying mountain biking is that kind of mindset.
Yeah. You just mentioned mindset. You know, what's even more interesting about what you just said is that I used to be the hiker, but I was never on hiking. I was on a bike, but I would look at something and be like, you guys are nuts. That phrase got erased from my vocabulary. I don't say that anymore. Like, even when I was riding with Jeff and I was looking at his lines, like I was amazed. I was blown away. But at the same time, I was kind of like, I kind of want to do that. Like, I kind of want to do that. And what's to stop me? You know, like, yes, time, of course, time would stop you and, you know, practicing, having the time to practice. But I no longer look at those lines and be like, you guys are nuts, or Hardline Tasmania. Like, obviously I don't have the skill to do anything on the Tasmania Hardline, but I didn't look at it like, well, I could never get there. I didn't say, oh, these guys are nuts. I looked at it and I was like, dude, that is cool. That is really cool. And maybe someday I'll get there. Like, how big of a mind shift is that? Did you do that?
I love it. Yes, I love it. I love it. I love it. And listener, come along with us. Sage, you said on that episode, I stopped saying no to myself. That is the same. The same thing is happening to me. I am seeing things here that I'm like, okay, I'm not there yet, but it's possible, and I want to get there.
Yeah.
And you know, 2025 goals that I set in December, I've already passed a whole bunch of them. Like climb the 3 the
Ledges?
three bitches, the three ledges, the three dirty ladies, as I think that was Nathan. Someone said that on Instagram.
Dirty ladies.
But I'm like getting that climb. Like, I'm not going to say routinely, but I get that climb now. Corona de Loma, I've gotten that climb. There's other tech climbs that I've gotten on national. I've gotten every single one of those sections, not all together, not all at once yet. That's what Jeff's working on that now. And I was like, wow. And he was like, dude, you could do it. And I was like, yeah, I guess I could. Yeah. To climb up all of national with all those uphill tech features and not dab. I know people have done it. It at one time it seemed impossible, but seeing people do it, there's so many things like that. I remember following Stephanie up one of the climbs, and she took that crazy line where she did the extra rock.
Yes,
on the climb. So Jeff and I now do that. That's now part of my climb. The last two times I've been there, I'm going up and over that rock. Yeah, I call it the Stephanie rock.
I love it. She gets a rock. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So were you going to ask about Hardline, or should I just let you?
No, I was going to ask you. So were you one of those people that used to say you guys are crazy or you're nuts?
Yes.
Yeah, I was too.
I love that. It was a mountain bike on mountain bike limiting belief system. It really was. It was like, you would see mountain bike MTB on MTB crime, which, and if we put that in the Ride and Laugh dictionary, what is it? It's limiting the belief to what is possible on a bike. Yeah. It's because I would see things and I would just be like, no way, that's crazy. I don't want to do that. That looks like I might get hurt. It would just be like the fear would kick in. Like, no way, I can't do that. And sure, just like Nathan said, maybe we have to put the work in, but I can look at a feature that a month ago I wasn't comfortable doing, and now I'm doing it routinely. Like, it's happening. And so it's good to pause and take a look at, hey, we're doing really well. We're having more fun. Yeah. We're progressing. And that's on the bike, that's off the bike. What's going right for you today? What's going to go right for you today? If you're listening to this podcast and it's the morning, get out of the car and just be like, I wonder what's going to go right for me today. Take that attitude into your day and see how it feels.
Yeah. I love that, man.
Now, you had mentioned Hardline and the idea that, maybe we could get there, right? And that you're not limiting yourself. And we got a couple of comments on Hardline, and one was from our buddy Zan at Sploosh MTB, which he's got a great YouTube channel, so check him out. And Zan's an awesome listener and awesome commenter. And regarding the Hardline Tasmania that we were talking about, I asked if you could do it on an Enduro bike if you slowed it down a little bit, right? And Zan said, I don't know that you could ride that course slower to a certain extent, being very nice, especially not on an Enduro bike. These are 80-plus foot jumps that a few people even cased, which caused massive crashes. Downhill bikes are literally the best at going really, really fast and soaking up terrain. I don't know that a really good Enduro could really keep up at those speeds. They were clocked hitting the biggest jumps at something like 47 miles per hour.
Yeah.
And then Butler Does It on Instagram commented that a nurse practitioner friend of his who also rides said that the hospitalization rates on Hardline is 25%.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
And
I saw that.
We talked about seeing the speed, like from the, on the video, and then watching the GoPro footage and seeing the speed. And I went back and I was looking at more, and they are just going so fast. I mean, I would not be comfortable going 47 miles per hour on a bike down a road.
Yeah, I know.
Like, let alone down dirt and hitting features. So maybe you can't kind of take your time through there. Maybe it's just so big. You have to be going so fast with all the technique to be able to boost everything that it's, I mean, so as I was absorbing these comments, I was like, okay, well, maybe not. But it didn't feel good. It felt limiting. It was more fun last week when we were like, I was like, maybe I can't do it. But it was much more fun last week when we were talking about maybe I can do it. I'm taking these comments. These guys aren't saying anything. We asked, could you do some Enduro bike? Who wants to do Hardline? They're like, we asked, but the limiting belief was just like, oh, okay, well, maybe not. But that doesn't feel good. It's not as much fun as thinking maybe yes.
Also not fair to you because that's not something that you train. That's you're putting a limiting thought on yourself, or you're limiting yourself before you even get to the start gate. And
you're right.
That's not fair to yourself. So the first question you ask yourself is this somewhere that I want to be? You know, and I don't think you and I realistically want Tasmania as a goal. Like, that's not a goal that I'm actually setting, but that would be your first step. Like, okay, define what it is that you want to get to, and then eliminate anything negative that stands in your way. And so you saying like, oh, I don't know if I could go 45 miles an hour, or I don't know if I'd, do this bike or this, like, no, you set the goal. And now how are we going to get there? So I didn't look at those comments as limiting. I look at those comments and I thought that was very specific to the kind of bike that you can ride at Tasmania. And I'm still going to double down. Yeah. I am going to double down that you can do the Enduro bike. Now, I don't think that you should. That was my point on the show. I said, I think that you should have a double crown. If you're going to do a Tasmania hardline and you're going to be going at those speeds, you should have a double crown bike. But you asked me, is it possible to do those things on an Enduro? And I think the answer is yes. Those drops and those rock features, you don't have to go the top side, the way they have it divided up is the top side's more tech. And then there's like a flowy middle section. And then the whole bottom section was, like Zan was saying, it's these like 80 to 100 foot jumps. The 80 to 100 foot jumps, you do need speed for. Like that, you cannot do that slower. You will not clear the jump. But those jumps aren't what you need the suspension for, because if you're doing the jump and you're hitting it at the correct speed, you're catching backside. I would argue you could even do that on hardtail. I'm not saying I'd want to. I'm saying that you could. Now, the amount of abuse that the hardline guys and gals are putting these bikes going through the tech upstairs, at the very top of the course, I think that does require if you're looking to medal, if you're looking to get a top 10 spot, I think you need a dual crown. I really do, because you're really pushing the bike's limits at that point.
Explain real fast for our listeners the difference between an enduro bike and a downhill bike.
Well, the downhill bike is going to give you more suspension. That's the easiest way to quantify it. And so the way that a downhill bike will do that is with a dual crown fork. And so if you're looking at a traditional bike, you have your why do you always ask me to explain it? And then I realize that I'm the worst explainer. So maybe you should do the explaining. You always stop me halfway through and you're like, it's not important.
You said dual crown. I didn't know if that was confusing to some of our listeners that don't know the terminology.
How would you? Yes, please explain. Well, how would you describe a dual crown fork, Dan?
I really liked where you were going with this. I thought this was going to be a great hot take. Yeah. I think when you say dual crown, is that front fork is just much more robust, and the stanchions go all the way up essentially to the handlebars instead of stopping at the stem. So there's more suspension there, and it's stiffer. I've never ridden a downhill bike, but I think it gives you a lot more obviously control and a lot more leeway.
It's also more slacked.
Riding it and slacker. Yep. Right. And they're not worrying about pedaling those things uphill at all. They are completely made for going just straight downhill. So yeah, they're going to be plenty slack. Whereas an enduro bike, you also pedal uphill. I ride an enduro bike. My main ride is an enduro bike, and I climb the bejesus out of that thing. So very different geometries also.
Oh yeah.
The enduro bike is possible. The downhill bike would be probably safer and more fun.
I've never ridden a downhill bike, so I can't answer that question. I did hop on one at Keswick. One of the guys had a downhill bike built, and like, dude, just try this. And I had a really hard time controlling it. It's so slacked out. I felt like I was on a chopper, like, those old school choppers with the raked out front end. That's what it felt like. Like it really just wanted to stay straight. Like it did not want to turn, which I found interesting. It was also really heavy. It was kind of a turnoff for me. Yeah, I don't know that I would be.
They probably come alive at speed. Ride and Laugh One at Gmail and YouTube comments. I would think when it's that slack, of course it's going to be bad going slow in the parking lot or in the side of the store. You probably have to start hitting like 15, 20 miles per hour before that thing really starts to come to life and get the balance that's needed to really excel at that. That's really interesting what you said about the limiting beliefs and how I was interpreting the comments about, look, hardline Tasmania is really dangerous and you have to go really fast.
Yeah.
Hardball. Hardline Tasmania is really dangerous and you have to go really fast in order to complete that course. Just to get through it, you're going to have to go at speeds that are uncomfortable for most mortal human beings. I interpreted that as, oh, maybe I can't do it. And you're saying, which I totally agree with, and I'm glad we had this conversation, that's the habit of old Dan of saying, oh, that's something I can't do. I'm not comfortable doing that. You're saying,
yeah,
look, we're not there. It's, yes, you can't do it now. You can't do it yet. I'm not at the top of hardline saying, hey, I'm not comfortable doing this on my Enduro bike now, but
right.
Anything is possible. So if I want to be able to get to that level, and look, hardline is not really the level that I'm shooting for, but to be able to like shred down some like technical trails at bike parks, or here in Arizona or British Columbia or Utah, wherever we end up going, Quebec, and know that I could do that and level up and continue to level up, anything is possible. We can do that. We can all do that. That's what this podcast is about. That's what you and I are doing. That's what we're proving. And that's what our listeners are doing. And listener, we have the freedom to believe what we want. And we want to believe that we can be the best riders possible, the best riders that we can be. We have the freedom to believe that. And let's see what happens. And just see what I just did, where I just put a limiting belief system on myself without even realizing it. It took a friend to point out, hey, you don't need to think that way. Now, and that's what we're all about. So Shelly, who is the leader of the fire team, she made the point that she's seen a lot of gifted teens pick up the sport, briefly dominate, and then leave it indefinitely, while some of the mediocre riders turn it into a lifelong sport.
Yeah.
They find the passion, right? And so you can be really naturally good at something, but if you don't have the passion for it, it doesn't matter. And if you're not that good at it, whatever it is, mountain biking or something else, if you're passionate about it, then you're going to stick with it. And that goes back into Nathan's comment and Jeff Jackson's comment. Like, I've earned this because I love it.
Yeah, man. That's I actually, and I saw that comment and that resonated with me too, because I did that a lot with my life. Before mountain biking, I went through so many different, I'm going to call them hobbies because they didn't last. But I was into billiards, I was into ping pong, I was into basketball, I was into soccer. None of those things last. This is the longest thing that I've held on to. And here's the key. I think a lot of that has to do with our friendship and the people in this community. I really, really do. There's something really attractive about the sport of mountain biking that was different from, all those other things that I just mentioned. And all those other things I picked up very quickly. Just like mountain biking, I quickly picked up. I'm not going to say I dominated, which is what Shelly was saying. Like, I didn't dominate anything, but I was good. I was very good very quickly. But for some reason, I'm going on 16 years or 17, 18 years on mountain biking, and I don't have any reason to stop. Like, I really enjoy this. What is the one thing that keeps you coming back to this sport, Danny?
I think you hit on something with the friendships, and it's and there's the progression, because I love a solo ride too. But there's the progression, there's the feeling of balance and flow on the bike that is just special. There's the fitness, all the things that we love about mountain biking. I could go on all day talking about this, honestly. The people we've touched on this so many times. The people that love mountain biking and are involved in the sport are just generally just really cool people.
I think that the reason why you and I feel that way is because we're not involved in the racing aspect of it. I think the racing does bring out a different subset of people. Because I look at like soccer and I look at basketball, and like the amount of like arguments and fights that happen are a real turnoff for me. And it happens, like I'm in a soccer league right now, and you're looking at grown men, 50-year-old men, and they're arguing about a call. And it's like, oh, I got fouled, or or it's out, and they get so riled up. And I look at mountain biking and it doesn't happen. You and I are we're having so much fun on the bikes, but we don't race. When you get into racing,
because we're not
That
competing
ugliness comes out
with another person.
That's right.
Does it?
I used to race quite a bit when I first started mountain biking, and I did not like that about mountain biking. I did not like the person I became. I didn't like the people that I was running into. Now, there are a lot of nice people that race. Don't get me wrong.
I haven't done enough races to, really have a strong opinion on this. What I have noted is that the enduro races, so you're not necessarily on the trail with other people. Like when the guys here, when I first moved here, they did the Halls Enduro race, and they just talked about having so much fun and the vibe being so good, and
Enduro is different,
and the energy being so good, and all the support. Now, I think what you're talking about is like the ultra competitive XC race. So maybe there's just some nuance in there.
Yeah, I was just got done again because I was cutting video for the last pod. I had to go through a bunch of gravel and cyclocross races. And I'm just looking at like the not niceties between all the riders. No one's saying hello. It's about like, squeezing into a corner and getting every inch out of whatever. You're right. An enduro race, because I covered the enduro race for the Birdsboro. Everybody was so cool because you're not, you're going off solo. You're going off solo.
You're
and it's like the best thing you can do. Yes.
There's no one in your way. You're not in someone's way. It's more pure to mountain biking because mountain biking is you against yourself, you against the mountain, right? You with the mountain. But the challenge is like doing as best as you can. It's not beating someone in soccer or beating someone in basketball and beating your man and being better than them. It's just doing the best that you can. And enduro brings that out. Maybe that's one of the reasons that enduro is so popular is because
I think fun, so, but
it's also high vibe. Yeah.
Oh, I think you just nailed it. All right.
I do think that most mountain bikers are awesome. The mountain bikers that I meet are awesome. And I've made so many friends mountain biking, and I love the sport. It's also a sport where you can easily spend 3, 4, 5 hours on a trail with people and get to know them. Like, very quickly start to become pretty good friends with people. Just you have this thing in common and you love it and you're supporting each other. Like it's just awesome. And I have a lot of really good friends, and then I moved here to Arizona and I'm making some more really good friends. And these guys are just so nice and so cool. And I was talking to my wife and she said something to her mom was here. She said something to her mom. She said something along the lines of, Dan always makes the nicest friends. Like he just meets the nicest people. And I didn't think too much of it, but since I'm here, like the people that I've met are mountain bikers, like I haven't made friends with the bagger at the grocery store. I have made friends with some of the servers at the local diners because, Danny loves the diner.
Yeah.
But
that's right.
It's the reason that the reason that my friends are so cool might be because my friends are mountain bikers.
Speaking of which, let's transition into gratitudes, brother. What's your gratitude this week?
So in the past, we have talked about Light Show as our favorite electrolyte drink. And just to re-summarize Light Show, it's really just like the salt and minerals that you sweat out. There's no flavor to it. I use it every day. I drink it in the morning before right when I get up, just like as a start to my day, and then we use it when we're mountain biking. And they have these little travel packets that I think they're meant to be able, you can open it up and you can squeeze it into your water bottle if you need to.
Yeah.
And my wife ended up buying a couple of these so that we would have them on flights and trips and things like that. And I put a bunch in my hydration pack just as like maybe at some point I'll need these. And sure enough, I'm out on a ride and I'm like starting to like kind of cramp up. And I've had this with other riders as well. And sometimes I carry the electrolyte pills in a coin purse. It's a good tip of the week.
Yeah.
But this time I didn't have them. And this is even better than the pills, than the electrolyte pills, because when you rip this off, you could put it in a water bottle. But I just been ripping it off and just sucking the electrolyte right in. And it is super salty. But let me tell you, when you're like in the Arizona heat and you're dehydrated, nothing tastes better. This stuff tastes so delicious when you're thirsty. And it's just like a hit of salt and minerals. Cramps are gone. Just fatigue is lessened. And so it's taking it in. Your system's getting it so quickly. It works really, really well. Sage and I have talked about not eating on rides, on most rides. I did 2 really big South Mountain rides last week. One of them I didn't touch anything. I just did my electrolyte drink. On the second one with Joe and Ryan, there was like an extra 600 plus feet of climbing because that's the way they are. Like, we're going to do these extra climbs before and after this massive ride. And I just sucked down one of those electrolytes and I felt great. So I'll put a link in the show notes, but it's a great thing to keep on a ride. And I appreciate that product. It helps me to ride stronger and have the confidence that if there is a cramp coming on or dehydration coming on, I can just kind of like take a quick hit of this light show in these packets. So the light show packets, the individual packets, Gratitude, I appreciate them.
I love it, Danny. I will have to look into that because I do like the light show. I've never seen one of these packets, so I will look into that. My gratitude is going to be an interesting one, but I have been having trouble lately writing in my gratitude journal because my eyesight has been going, Dan. I hate to admit it. So my distance is fine, but the close up I've been losing being able to read close. Like I'm starting to like do this with the menu, where you're like, you've seen old people do this.
I noticed that. Well, I noticed that last time we hung out. Yeah.
Yes. And my dad's fiance, Toshiko, gave me a set of readers, and I've been using them every morning to write in the journal. It's been fantastic. So thank you to Toshiko-san, who is my dad's fiance, for hitting me up with these readers. They're not that powerful, but it's made a world of difference for me. So if you have been on the fence about seeing, definitely get yourself a pair of readers. It's embarrassing, but they work, man.
Another thing, we talked about red light therapy. There is some evidence that looking into a red light can heal your eyes. There are ways to be able to heal your eyes. Yeah. Yeah.
I am not ready to. Yeah, you better look into that. I'm not ready to recommend. Have a bunch of people like,
stare at the light. Stare at the light. Yes. Okay. All right.
Mountain bike tip. This one's pretty simple one. I'll keep it short and sweet. I was out on a ride at Smedley, and because of all the freeze thaw that's been happening, which we had talked about earlier today, the amount of like mud that has been splatting up onto my glasses. It's cold, so I'm wearing sunglasses. I carry these lens wipes because I bring them with us when we go to downhill parks. I've been packing the lens wipes in my hip pack just so that I could wipe my glasses. And I was like, oh, this is fantastic. So I will leave a link to the lens wipes that I'm using. They're by I forget who the company is, but they're fantastic. They're little travel wipes made for your sunglasses, and they work fantastically. I'll put a couple of these in my pocket or in my hip pack or in my backpack, and I just bring them around with me. They are unbelievable. So that is my mountain bike tip. Bring some lens wipes with you on these rides. They'll make a huge difference. That could have been my gratitude. I could have reversed it.
That's a great tip. That's a good gratitude. Gratitude to the lens wipes. Absolutely. Both of them have to do with seeing. So that's interesting, right? Seeing the trail, seeing your journal, seeing the gratitude. Yeah. Yeah. Keeping your eyes up. I talked about the anti-fog wipes that I found that I was using. Yes. They're pretty inexpensive as well. And so if fogging is an issue, they have wipes that also do that. And if you're someone that wears glasses, when we went for a ride with Shelly a few weeks ago, she had her glasses on, and I noticed they were fogging up. And I didn't get an opportunity to say to her, hey, you should try the anti-fog wipe and let us know. Like if you actually have to wear glasses and they're fogging up, I'm curious if they would work. So, but yeah, that's a great tip. We got to be able to see the trails. That's for sure. How nasty is your bike when you get back? If there's mud on your sunglasses, how much cleaning are you having to do on the bikes?
My bike is it's either frozen mud or it's crap all over the bike.
Because you keep your bike.
I don't know what I'm going to do.
You keep your bike outside. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so it just gets so it just freezes. Yeah, the mud just freezes, and so you just keep riding. Right. That's not good. You're not supposed to do that.
Not good. It's at least 10 pounds heavier than when I bought it from all the frozen mud.
Well, I don't want to just keep rubbing it in, but I was talking to Joe and Ryan on that ride, and I was just looking at how clean their drivetrains were, and I was like, how often are you guys cleaning the drivetrain? And then I looked down at my drivetrain, and it was pretty clean. And I do some basic, I lube my chain and I clean my chain every ride. But it's, in the back in the Northeast, like the cassette was filling up with leaves and sticks and mud, and the down tube was getting all nasty. Here it's just dust. It's just, the bikes take a beating because of the terrain.
You rinse them off.
But
yep.
It's just dust. Yeah, it's really quite nice.
Wow, that's true.
Come to Arizona.
Fair enough. All right, Danny, bring us home.
All right. If you're still listening, you are definitely one of us. You love mountain biking. We appreciate you. Gratitude. Please like and subscribe on YouTube. Please add a comment. Please watch till the end. It helps the algorithm. Please tell your friends about the Ride and Laugh podcast and spread the good word. And make sure that you give us 5 stars on your favorite podcast player. And make sure that you download. That helps as well. We appreciate everybody. Have a wonderful week and a great week of riding. Ride and Laugh.
I'll see you, everyone.